I'm your main man, Art. This here is Christian Crosby. We got the Chicago Bulls in the building versus your Philadelphia 76ers.
I love the energy, Archie. I love the excitement. And, of course, I love the dance moves. It's so good to have you back. I just want to give you a little peek of this Tissot watch I got on, though, right here. What you think about it, Archie?
That's clean.
Look, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. As you can see, Squad 7-6 is over here. The Sixers are over here, and we are excited for some Sixers basketball as usual. I want to remind you guys, though, before we get into the fun, download the official 76ers mobile app, and here's why. There's more photos than ever before, more videos than ever before, wallpapers, and a podcast featuring Brian Seltzer and Lauren Rosen, our favorites, of course. So, there's one more reason you should download that app, and Archie's going to tell you why. Archie, why should they download that app?
Because the Wendy's Frosty Freeze Out is still alive and in the building tonight more than ever. We want to send you guys home with some free Wendy's gifts. All you have to do is hope that the Chicago Bulls miss 2 consecutive free throws in a row. The first time they do, you get a free small Frosty. The second time, a small fry. And the third time, you get a medium Frosty and a medium fry. But you need that 76ers app in order to redeem your prize.
Archie, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, you got to download the app if you want the free Wendy's. It's that simple. I also want to give a big shout out to Joel Embiid. Just last night, the NBA announced he will be an NBA starter. Let's clap it up for Joel Embiid. Joel, you're the man. You're playing some good basketball nowadays. I don't think we need to hold you anymore. It's time for some Sixers basketball. Brian Seltzer, Lauren Rosen, we're checking in with you. And for now, we're going to have some fun. Let's go Sixers!
The favorites, without question, are Arch and Christian Crosby. Awesome to hear and see Arch back in the center once again. Great to see a live look-in right now inside the arena in South Philadelphia as the 76ers wrap up this very brief 2-game homestand, doing so tonight against the Chicago Bulls. Good evening, and how you doing? I'm Brian Seltzer, Lauren Rosen. Great to see you. This is Tissot presenting your one and only 7-6 Live Countdown. We do it before every game, around 90 minutes before tip. 76ers in the midst of a lengthy home stretch. They play 6 out of their final 8 before the break at home. But after tonight, it's on the road to Tampa, Florida, for 2 against the temporary Tampa Toronto Raptors. But up first, the Chicago Bulls. And good to note, Lauren Rosen, a couple things. Yes, Joel Embiid, an all-star starter for a 4th straight season. Incredible for him. And the 76ers snapped their 3-game losing streak when they got back home on Wednesday night against the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, good to not let that streak go further than it did. Those 3 losses, of course, against good teams on the road. All 3 games were close. The Sixers could have won any of, if not all 3 of those. So it's good that that losing streak didn't end up becoming more than it needed to be. Good to see the team get out as hot as they did on Wednesday. You said it, Seltz, one of the most fun halves of basketball that this 76ers team has played. And let's get right into it. Matisse Thybulle, of course, starting in place of Ben Simmons on Wednesday. And he was making it happen on both ends, Seltz.
He really was, and I put that tweet out there after the first half that I thought it was one of the most fun halves of basketball this season. You see Matisse go right in there for the score. Because it was guys like Matisse and Isaiah Joe and Tyrese Maxey, who has the ball in isolation here going in on a tough take to the rim and getting the kind roll. I loved it because of the energy and the spirit the 76ers played with, Lauren, how convincingly the team played in that first half, how good the defense was especially, and that there were guys who were getting involved that you didn't quite expect to see involved as heavily as they were. I'm talking about guys like Tyrese and Isaiah and Matisse leading the charge at the top of that zone.
Absolutely. Really cool to see the young guys get going, get cooking. And of course, the second half, not quite as strong as the first half as we get into the third quarter here, but this was a team that had just come off of a 4-game road trip, adjusting back to East Coast time. Looked like they got a little sleepy there in the second half, but when the Rockets made their push, the Sixers still held it down and were able to get the W.
It was a very interesting dynamic. These are the games within the game that we pay attention to here at 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot. You may notice by watching the highlights, Joel Embiid was wearing something in the first half that he then ditched in the third quarter and second half. Yes, that would be the white headband. And while the rest of the 76ers were flourishing that first half, headband Joe took a little bit to get going, battling through some tightness in his back. He threw off the headband, got rid of it at halftime, came out firing on all cylinders in the second half. And if not for Joel Embiid, this game might have gotten away from the 76ers. 23 of his 31 points after intermission, and he was excellent, Lauren, in crunch time, as was Tobias Harris.
Absolutely. That Joel Embiid defense is just insane, as you saw the block there. I believe that was the one that ended up being overturned after a review, but here's Joel getting it done on the offensive end as well. And you said it, he took off the headband and entered another level. I think that might have to be one of our new sub beats, Celts, is halftime wardrobe changes. I have seen a couple sneaker changes this season at halftime, not something that I necessarily push out there as newsworthy, but certainly something.
All right, so now if I'm going through and listing our sub beat categories, we have vibe and spirit, your department. Headbands, maybe that could be my department. Halftime wardrobe changes, we can give that to you as well.
An honor. I would be honored to continue following these developing stories, this hard-hitting news.
So it was not a Picasso for the 76ers on Wednesday night, but it was a victory, which is what they needed, 118-113 over Houston. Doc Rivers weighing in.
Yeah, it just got sloppy, It happens. We had a big lead. Probably didn't have a lot left in the tank, I thought Tobias, rebounding-wise, I know we look at his points, but, the rebound the ball, the way he rebounded the ball, we needed that. I thought our zone threw them off. Second half, they kind of started figuring out making shots. But I thought our offensive, like the turnovers and things, is the only way this game became a game. But other than that, I'm happy with the game. I'll take the win for sure.
Absolutely. You got it. That's what it's all about. They all count the same at the end. And the 76ers needed it. They're now one win away from getting to the 20-win mark and looking to be the first team in the Eastern Conference to reach that milestone. We have some great new tech additions here on 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot. We get some live look-ins. I think we might have one right now. Yes, a very familiar face for fans of a certain vintage, the all-time assists and steals leader in 76ers franchise history, the retired number 10, Mo Cheeks.
It is so cool to see folks like, of course, Mo Cheeks coming back into town. Former Sixers assistant coach John Bryant is here. A couple player development coaches. Shout out to Ty Abbott, Max Rothschild. There's a lot of Sixers presence here. Let's not forget about Mark Eversley. So these are a lot of people that have started out here with the Sixers and gone on to, from, of course, various degrees of success following their time here.
Speaking, Lauren, of the franchise leader in assists and steals, Mo Cheeks, you would have to think that a current member of the squad, number 25, might be coming at both of those records before it's all said and done. And we're hoping that Ben Simmons is available and out there tonight. Shake Milton, it sounds like, is not going to be a go. But based on what Doc Rivers said pregame, Ben Simmons, they'll find out closer to tip. But hopefully he's got that illness behind him.
Yes, indeed. Would be great to see Ben back. Keep in mind, last time we saw Ben out there was his 42-point performance, the career high in Utah, that, of course, ended up in that bummer of a defeat. But such a historic night for Ben, a really exciting thing to see him fire the way that he did. So hopefully he'll be able to get back in the lineup, whether tonight or in Tampa, Toronto over the weekend. It'll be good to see Ben back. And it was also good to hear Doc say that Shake is looking a lot better, that he's getting some run in at practice. He's playing from end to end. He's doing a lot more. Would be great to see Shake back soon as well.
Yeah, Doc said these were his words, that perhaps as soon as this weekend, not going to hold him to it. We know how these things go, but it sounded like there was some scrimmaging among some of the lower minute guys that the 76ers had following shoot around today or before shoot around, and Shake was a part of that, Doc said. So that is definitely encouraging news that it seems like Shake Milton's return is on the horizon. You know, Lauren, thinking about what the 76ers had going for them over the course of this season and something that they stumbled upon, we knew the Sixers could play some effective zone defense with Ben Simmons in tandem with Matisse Thybulle. On Wednesday, particularly in that first half, what we saw was Matisse take the lead of that zone, and the Sixers had great success with it.
It's been really cool to see the way that they've utilized this zone defense with and without Ben Simmons. It's been successful both ways. Of course, anytime you can have Ben up at the top of that 2-3 zone, you are going to create problems for the other team. But it was really cool to see them succeed even without Ben in his zone setup against Houston. It really worked in that first half. They gave Houston a lot of problems. And you heard Doc Rivers talk about it. He said that it's a skill and a tool that they can continue going back to. And it's, I don't know, it's fun to watch. That's what I'll say.
It's amazing the serendipity of this whole thing with Thybulle and now getting the chance to play zone again in the NBA, because he did it a lot at Washington in college. He was a Defensive Player of the Year for the entire NCAA. And it was really last season. I don't have this down to an exact date or specifics, but to me, it was really last season, led by the Miami Heat, where we saw more and more NBA teams begin to play a little bit of zone here and there. And that hasn't gone away so far, with things resuming in 2020, 2021. And sure enough, I'm not sure if Elton Brand and the 76ers front office were looking that far ahead in terms of schematic possibilities and trends league-wide, Lauren, when they drafted Matisse back in June of 2019. But lo and behold, here we are, where zone defense is kind of on a little bit of a situational and circumstantial comeback in the NBA, and the Sixers have a premier zone defender.
No doubt about that, Celts. And one of my favorite moments, you guys know, if you're regulars watching this show, that I spend a lot of my time in Zooms these days with our 76ers. One of my favorite moments in a Zoom all season was talking to Matisse Thybulle following that first real rollout of the zone defense in Indiana. And I asked him what it's like now to have had a lot of the folks that doubted him coming out of the draft, saying he would only be a good zone defender, that he would struggle playing man defense in the league, to now taking this role, doing a good job with man defense in the league, but also leading the Sixers through a lot of zone. And Matisse said with a little bit of a smile, it's ironic. And I loved the way that he was able to sort of respectfully say to the haters, look, I was able to do what you said I couldn't do, and I'm also able to do what you said I could do. And it's been really cool to watch him lead this group through something pretty new and pretty successful.
There's been a lot of numbers, Lauren, thrown around about Matisse and the stats that point to how good and effective he's been on defense. One is that he leads the NBA in steals per minute. He's also climbing the charts in steals per game, despite playing at a lower volume of minutes than most. One number that jumps out to me is the field goal differential that Matisse is posting in terms of his defensive impact. You can really get granular with some of these stats on NBA.com, and field goal differential is what it sounds like. It's the difference in your opponent who you're guarding's field goal percentage when you're guarding that player versus his average. And Matisse's field goal differential is by far and away the best in the 76ers and close to among the best in the league. He's at around negative 6.5%. is how much worse the opposition shoots against Matisse Thybulle when he's on the floor. I mean, that is an amazing number.
It's really crazy. You said it as well, that the impact that he has in fewer minutes. I actually had pulled up those deflections and steals stats right before we went live, knowing that we'd have this conversation. But he is leading the league in deflections per 36 and steals per 36. He's climbing the charts, like you said. I believe he's 8th overall in steals per game, despite only playing 17 minutes per game. The guys that are ahead of him on that list play a lot more minutes than he does. So the impact that he puts in such a short period of time, at least usually when he's not in that starting lineup, is really fantastic. And it's been cool to see him get credit from Doc and his teammates for the special skills that he has.
We know everyone in and around these parts in Philadelphia, in the Delaware Valley, they recognize what a special commodity and defender Matisse Thybulle is. Does he have a shot at something like Defensive Player of the Year or All-League Defensive? Not sure, but you know what? When you have someone who is in the running for both of those things, like Joel Embiid, stumping for you on the campaign trail, that can never hurt. So here's Joel Embiid talking about Matisse Thybulle and how he's thrived in the Sixers zone look so far.
I mean, when you got Matisse in the game, I feel like that's our best defense. He gets his hands on everything. I think he has a potential to be the best defender in the league. Just the way he moves and the way he weighs on defense, and he's got great hands. That he's one of the reasons why we do it. We did it in Indiana and in that fourth quarter, and he completely changed the game. And tonight, we basically did it the whole game. He was all over the place, and I think he has a chance, and especially when it comes to, all NBA defensive teams.
High praise from an all-leaguer in Joel Embiid. Speaking of which, an all-league defensive player, giving out some hugs down there in the near corner courtside. That's Danny Green going through his warm-ups with Seth Curry, two guys that were absolutely instrumental, Lauren, in getting the 76ers out to a blazing hot start in the game on Wednesday. The Sixers knocked down 11 three-pointers in the first half. That was really great to see. We hadn't seen a volume of three-pointers like that from the 76ers in an entire game going back until the middle of March. I beg your pardon, middle of January.
Well, Danny's already had some career performances from deep since he put on a Sixers uniform, and Seth is one of the best three-point shooters of all time statistically. So when the two of them are both firing at the same time, it's pretty dangerous for this team, and we were treated to that experience on Wednesday in the first half.
There's Danny Green, the three-time NBA champion. Happy birthday, Juan Jackson. You see him at the bottom of your screen. He's the head of security for the 76ers. Good to see Juan out there celebrating a birthday today. We're going to hear a little bit more directly from Matisse Thybulle. A lot of talk about him as of late, but it is time now for our mid-show interlude. We need to get you fired up some more. As much as we try, Lauren and I on our end, no one does it like the Sixers.
Attention! 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 Right now, drummer slide, drummer glide, drummer slide, break it on down.
No one does it like Antoine Knapp and the Sixers. Fast, slow, drumming in a distance. Love to see him.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, as always, to the Sixers for spicing up this 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot.
Matisse Thybulle in a moment. We'll see if we can get one more live look. I cannot get enough because I'm not there. I just want to see all the live look-ins. Give me more. Coletti, Trevor, you guys are awesome finding these shots. Here we have a look-in at the Bulls. And if I could ever recognize someone getting his right wrist taped, I got to say that looks like a Zach LaVine all-star candidate right wrist tapage going on right there, or using, it's not a wrist taping, his stretching device. I'm looking forward to watching him tonight, Lauren. He's been great this year.
He certainly has a very exciting player on this Bulls team, leading them in scoring, 7th overall in the league in scoring. I'll double check that because I didn't like how I felt saying it. But he has been phenomenal. 6th in the league in scoring, 28.5 points per game. Zach LaVine has been on an absolute tear and a potential all-star, like you said, Seltz.
Well, Lauren, we know that the 76ers are going to focus on him defensively, and we have some breaking news right now this instant. It seems like the 76ers D is, like it was on Wednesday against John Wall, going to be under duress against a very dangerous scorer.
Yes, indeed. We are learning that Ben Simmons will be out for the 2nd consecutive game due to an illness. So we hope, first and foremost, that Ben is feeling better and feeling better soon. Imagine we'll see a little bit more responsibility from someone who we've talked about a lot on this show so far, Mr. Matisse Thybulle, who has experience actually guarding Zach LaVine. I believe that was one of his breakout moments in high school, was an opportunity to guard Zach LaVine in a game that featured a lot of scouts coming to see Zach play, and Matisse ended up catching their eyes for sure.
Well, Matisse, you'd have to not really be able to see the impact to not understand how good he's been defensively so far for the 76ers in his short time as an NBA player. Jumped into the fray last year, got off to a slightly slow start this season because he was overcoming some injuries around the time the training camp started. But Lauren, there's no question about it. He has earned a spot in Doc Rivers' rotation.
No doubt about it. It's been great to hear. We heard from Joel Embiid moments ago. We heard from Doc Rivers earlier pregame about the impact that Matisse makes. And again, if you're just joining us, we're learning that Ben Simmons will be out for the second consecutive game tonight with an illness, hoping that Ben gets better soon. Matisse Thybulle expected to pick up some of the slack that Ben will leave on the defensive end. And I had an opportunity to chat with Matisse this morning.
Hey, Matisse, great to see you. After the Indiana game and again after Wednesday's game, your teammates have given you a lot of credit for the way that you helped lead that zone defense. You guys have been playing so much more. Tobias keeps calling you the zone captain or the zone leader. What's it like to have ownership and leadership over something that's been really successful for this team?
I mean, it's cool. I wouldn't even say that I'm like the leader of the zone. I feel like we all kind of go off of each other. We play like zones are so hard in the league just based on like the rule changes between like college and the NBA that we really just have to play off of each other. And I think the guys at this point just know my strengths, so they compliment me in a way in the zone that helps me showcase them. And in the same way, I try to do the same for them.
I know you're the type of player that wants to make an impact regardless of whether you're starting or coming in off the bench, but to have your first start on Wednesday and to hold it down and do a good job, how did that feel for you?
I mean, it felt good in the sense that they trusted me to be in the starting lineup, and I felt like I came through on my end and just doing my part. Like when they came to me before the game and told me I was going to start, I was like, well, I just want to make sure I can do what's asked of me, basically. And so it's a good feeling to look back and see that I did that.
Last but not least, Joel was named an Eastern Conference All-Star starter last night. What's it been like to be Joel Embiid's teammate while he's been on a pretty historic tear this year?
I mean, honestly, the last 2 years, just like my whole time in the NBA, just watching Joel do what Joel does, it's pretty special. And I think at the beginning I took it for granted. I was like, well, I mean, it's just, he's another NBA player, like just gets buckets. But like being on his team and seeing what he does to other teams, what he does to their defenses, how all they're trying to do is stop him and nobody can. It's really special, and he's a special player. And honestly, the fact that he's a starter is no surprise. I think we're just waiting for him to be named MVP.
Matisse Thybulle, thanks so much.
Love that enthusiasm from Matisse Thybulle. Love the way he talks about his teammate Joel Embiid, who was indeed named an all-star starter just last night. And I like what Matisse said. Let's keep that MVP conversation rolling now. That's the one that they're really chasing after. And I don't know about you, Celts, but I thought it was funny the way that Matisse answered that first question. A lot of modesty coming from the second-year player to say he's not sure if he's the leader of the zone defense. You've got 10-year veterans like Tobias Harris constantly talking about how Matisse is leading them through that. You can see on the court the way that the veterans are looking to Matisse for his leadership there. So I've been excited to see the way that he's been leading them through that. And I thought it was a nice show of modesty and a nice display of props to his teammates when it comes to how that zone is really working out there.
Guy still being humble and hungry, deflecting a bit. I think we can all see it and recognize what's going on. I like the fact that he's not getting too high about this stuff. But no doubt his effectiveness for the 76ers has been so important. And when you can turn to someone like that, and I would presume he'll probably get the start again tonight without Ben Simmons, if you're just joining us. Ben Simmons out due to illness for a second straight game. Listen, when you can rely on a reserve weapon like that, certainly it is a great luxury for Doc Rivers and the 76ers to have. Speaking of excellent and exceptional weapons who are elite at what it is they do, Seth Curry, the man, can throw flames out there. When he is in a rhythm, that is what he has been doing this year, working with assistant coach Chris Babcock, coming off a 25-point game, Lauren, the other night. That is the second highest scoring total on the season for Seth and his third 20-point game since returning from that COVID layoff.
Yes, indeed. Good to see some smiles from Seth, too, on Wednesday. My understanding is that it has been really difficult for him to get back into game shape after being sick. So it's great to see him firing the way we're used to seeing him firing, because I imagine that was a really frustrating process for him. So really cool to see him getting his rhythm back, getting his swagger back. Like you said, 25 points Wednesday, and expect to see some more productivity from Seth tonight.
Seth, 8 for 13 from the field as he makes his way off the floor. That was going back to Wednesday's game. He was 3 for 5 from outside the arc and 6 for 6 from the free throw line, 5 assists, and really big in getting the 76ers out to an early 29-point lead early on in the third quarter. All right, I'm going to pull up my sleeve, Lauren. I'm going to check my Tissot Chrono XL watch. It looks like it's time for the Tissot keys to the game. As we talk about the Chicago Bulls coming in tonight, taking on a 76ers team that's looking to make it 2 straight. Lauren, would you like to go first tonight?
I'd be happy to, Celts. I'm going to adjust mine a little bit. My key to the game was keep LaVine on lock. We've talked about Zach LaVine's 28.5 points per game that he's averaging this season. He's been phenomenal for this Bulls team, and you'd imagine Ben Simmons would have had a lot of possessions guarding LaVine. Imagine now Matisse Thybulle, Danny Green might share that responsibility. So if those two can keep LaVine on lock, the Sixers should be in pretty good shape this evening.
My theme is very much related for my key to the game. I almost presented it as an esoterical question. Anybody but? Do you allow anybody to beat you but Zach LaVine? He's the main threat that Chicago has. No Lauri Markkanen for the Bulls tonight. LaVine, yes, he can fly high. We know that. We saw it against the Sixers last year, but he's shooting exceptionally well this year from 3 at nearly 44%. I think probably anybody but. Listen, Zach LaVine, their main guy, as you said, Lauren, he's the obvious focal point of the scouting report. And those were our keys to the game presented by Tissot. This Bulls team, Lauren, I don't know, are you believing in them? They're interesting. They're 12-15. They've got a proven head coach in Billy Donovan, who's definitely a winner. They're climbing up the Eastern Conference. They're just a half game out of the 8th place spot. What do we see in the Bulls?
Well, it's a Bulls team that's made a lot of changes. The Sixers had a similar setup, new head coach, new head of basketball ops over the offseason. And it's been cool to see them get off to a pretty decent start, even without Markkanen, who's one of their obviously key young pieces that will start to be a part of this Bulls team as soon as he gets back, along with a Kobe White, along with a Zach LaVine. I think they're probably gonna be the real deal. This season, I'm not so sure, but as that group of young players continues to grow under new leadership, I could see them becoming a threat in the next, 2-3 seasons.
Unfortunately, as we talked about, no Ben Simmons for the 76ers tonight, but as some of the coaches around the NBA, I'm sure all of them are bearing their heads deep into poring over material on how to go about voting for those precious, coveted 7 reserve spots for the Eastern Conference pool of players for the All-Star game. There's a guy in LaVine who could be one of the names that someone like a Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris is contending with to get one of those final 7 spots. So I would love to see Tobias Harris have a great game tonight going up against a team that another candidate for one of those 7 spots, Zach LaVine, plays for.
Yeah, a good Tobias night and a good defense on LaVine night. I don't want to wish a bad night on LaVine, but if the 76ers can put good defense on Zach, if we could get Tobias really firing, it could do a lot for that all-star conversation that we have so often here on 7-6 Live.
Not saying that LaVine is exactly like some of the guards the 76ers faced on that West Coast trip, thinking of guys like Damian Lillard and Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. LaVine a little bit different, but still 76ers, I think if you asked them something they were looking to improve upon from that West Coast trip, locking up against some very dangerous backcourt talent. So tonight is an opportunity for them to do that before they set out on the road to take on a really good Toronto team in terms of its backcourt for 2 games in Tampa.
Yes, indeed. And as you can see on the graphic, this one's going to tip off in a little under an hour, 7:30 p.m. You can catch it on NBC Sports Philadelphia or ESPN, or listen along with our friend Tom McGinnis on 97.5 The Fanatic.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much. Thank you to Ryan Coletti and Trevor Gaffney on the sticks. 76ers and the Bulls coming up in a little under an hour. Enjoy the game. Have a great start to your weekend, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. See ya.
And we're back, which means we're moments away from game time. Chicago Bulls versus your Philadelphia 76ers. And you can catch all the action on ESPN.
You can also check it out on NBC Sports Philadelphia and 97.5 The Fanatic. I think it's time for the game. I don't think there's much more to say. I'm excited. Archie, are you excited?
Super excited, Christian.
All right, well, thank you for watching 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot. I got my Tissot watch on right now. Here they come. Let's go, Sixers!